Okay.
All right. We're here talking to Cody Brewer. He's done a few things, I guess. He's a pretty decent little wrestler in Missouri. And currently he is assistant coach at Virginia Tech. So we're going to ask him a few different things, cover a lot of topics, some of them a little more serious than others. But um, first off, what are you telling your guys to do to train or stay ready or any way they can get better just during this whole coronavirus situation?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Obviously we've never seen anything like this. The virus and the whole thing that's going on, kind of nuts. That I've never seen anything just completely shut down. Everything. So right now, basically for our guys, it's just doing things on their own. We can't really tell them to do workouts or do anything that they're not wanting to. But obviously if they're Division I sport, they're doing something to try to get better. Hopefully every day, whether it's even as simple as watching film or the things at home they can do, and getting out and going for runs. It seems like people are actually doing more exercise outside now than I've probably ever seen. But so yeah, that's just the basic thing, is just trying to get better every day in little ways. It doesn't always have to be a big jump every day, but little gains of trying to get their body back in shape a little bit. We had the kind of downtime after NCAAs there, or should have been NCAAs, I should say. But, I had that downtime a little bit now. It's kind of just figuring out what's next and going with whatever our university tells us that we can and can't do. So just kind of doing that, I should say, to strengthen, our guys and try to make them better every day. But yeah, our strength coach is actually doing quite a bit too as well. Like he can give them workouts and been sending them stuff. So it's been good so far. Little weird, a little different than what we're used to, but it's been good. So
Yeah, for sure. So you kind of hit on it. So it's kind of a good transition, but probably kind of a sad thing to talk about. But how did your group, or what was your reaction to when you heard NCAAs were canceled?
I think more than anything, I knew, and this is probably bad to say beforehand, but when the NBA got canceled, that we were in trouble.
Hmm.
I was like, that's not good. They don't shut down big organizations like the NBA that make tons and tons of money
Yeah.
if it's not something serious, And I think that was probably the hardest part, for me, is knowing I felt like that it was just coming. I was like, man, the NBA was first, and then it was kind of a couple weeks later they got to the NCAA stuff, and it's rough, right? I mean, the seniors that put all that work in and don't get to do it. We had a couple seniors on our team that it was rough for them, and you feel for them, and honestly, you could say what they feel like, but you don't, because we've never been in that situation, and you just try to be there for them as much as you can. And our guys were pretty shook up, right? I mean, you take that whole, there's a lot of tears shed. You're mad, you're upset, and it's a tough thing to deal with when you're, a college kid that's like, because I can't imagine, myself, if they're like, hey, your last run, or you're a senior or a freshman or sophomore, you can't go this year,
Hmm.
and you're a week and a half away from finishing, and I think the wrestling world would be so much different if we made it a week and a half past NCAAs and they're like, all right, we're shutting everything down. Everybody would be like, sweet, we're good, we
Yeah.
can move on with life. But, shutting down the tournament, I think, really took it out of people. And they were talking at one time with no fans. How do you have an NCAA tournament with no fans? I don't know if that would have been, the guys would have got to wrestle, but how, deflating would that have been like, I just want to see a title and nobody's here,
Yeah.
so it was a
Imagine
tough one to swallow. So.
imagine your own run. Like you were, whenever you won NCAAs, you were like the momentum king. Imagine what that would have been like without any fans or anything. I mean, that would have been so different, I feel like.
Really rough. Yeah. Would
Yeah.
have been really rough. And, it's still a title's a title. And I'm sure the guys would have taken it that got it with no fans. And I agree. But, man, that's part of that experience. It's really odd. It's a one of a kind thing. And once you're a part of it, it's with the fans and I was actually talking to somebody the other day about it, that it's the only like sporting event where like all teams are in one arena, like college wise, because you get college basketball or like you know, two different teams usually, and that's it. They're cheering for their team. It's like you literally have every team in one arena cheering for their people no matter what or what's going on. It's kind of
Yeah.
a special thing. So it's pretty cool.
So it's kind of the last downer topic, I swear. But
No, you're
you
good.
you coach in Virginia, so you got a good finger on the pulse of that situation. So what was kind of the reaction in the state to the ODU news last week about ODU getting dropped?
Crushing. I mean, those guys, and that's another thing. And obviously, I think about, I was telling somebody because we were kind of talking about it. I think about obviously the kids and how bad you feel for them that it gets dropped, but more than anything, I felt for their coaching staff. I mean, those guys they lose their jobs. I mean, can't imagine, being at this state, even in my career, early coaching career, that, if I woke up one day or I knew before and they're like, you're going to lose your job at the end of this. And it's like, man, that's obviously, hopefully the kids go on to wrestle somewhere else, and still can compete. The seniors, it's unfortunate the kind of coronavirus took
Yeah.
it from them either way. But, I felt for those coaches and then that was rough. I know for them is, they got families and it's really bad. And it's unfortunate that sometimes that happens. I don't know. It's been happening a couple of times with, Eastern Michigan and then ODU and then you see programs pop up. So, you think there's hope again. And then something like that happens and you're like, man, it's
Yeah.
interesting how I don't know how they played it off the virus as well. I don't know the details of it too much, but it's kind of a bad time, right? A double, like you said, kind of double downer, one after another thing. Like you're like, hey, we're not going to wrestle in the end of the season, and now we're going to end up dropping your program too. It's like,
Yeah.
guys
Oh, and the coronavirus too.
yeah, and can't catch a break. So, but yeah, unfortunate. Hopefully, like I said, those kids that still have eligibility, hopefully they go to another program and can still compete and wrestle. And then the coaching staff, hopefully they can get on somewhere and still coach and do their jobs. So,
Yeah. All right. On to more, positive stuff. So I asked some people different things that they might want me to ask you, but obviously your run at the NCAAs was very, highly touted and awesome. So we were talking the difference between you did well all year, but you were just a different level of dominant when you wrestled the NCAAs the year you won it. What was the difference, or what was the mindset that you had going into those matches?
I think more than anything is just getting back to just wrestling. I'd been to the tournament twice. I'd got on the podium twice, and I was thinking that, obviously I could, kind of that summer going into that year, I knew I could win it. I was like, I'm right there at the cusp, of wrestling these guys and beating the really talented guys in my weight, and just knowing going into that I had to put 5 matches together to win it, and that I could, and I felt good when I went into every match. And, I don't know, it happened so quick in a way that I was just like sitting there, on Saturday, like I'm in the NCAA finals. I've been thinking about this day since I was a kid, watching other people, and it just, yeah, it was crazy. This year I actually sat down and watched all the matches because I had never I had seen clips of them and watched them, and I was like, man, that's all right. I like that.
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy, and
You
the
were
more
on
anything,
fire.
yeah, the more anything I think about, all the time that people put into me, my coaches, my family being there. I mean, that was in St. Louis, and I'm a Missouri guy, and it was cool to have all my family there, when I won it. And so it was definitely a run that, hopefully, I could tell my kids about one day, and that I'm like, your dad used to be pretty good, and that's a cool thing, for me to be able to say that and to live that moment. And thank God there's, video that I can watch it, again and show people. And it's, because, back in the day, there was no Flow Wrestling. There was no videos, it wasn't on ESPN. And so it's cool to definitely remember that moment and get back to it. It's a crazy thing. I don't, I tell people all the time, I put a lot of sacrifice into that tournament. I put a lot of hours, a lot of practice time, a lot of, film, whatever it was. I put a lot into that. And that was my sacrifice. I made, I didn't do a whole lot of normal things probably that normal college kids did to do. And, I think that's in a way what made me different. I sacrificed a lot, and that was what it took to get that title. So,
Yeah. So this might sound like a dumb question to some people, but people don't know what emphasis certain tournaments hold for certain wrestlers. So I was thinking, obviously, you won state championships in high school, you won
Hmm.
the NCAAs, and then you won the U.S. Open, right? So of those, which of those was the most exciting for you, I guess, in the moment when you won it? Or
Hmm.
uh, did they hit you differently, or
Yeah.
were they were all just like, oh yeah, this is, I love all these.
Yeah. No, the state tournament was, yeah, I would say that was special in a way of like I got to do that with my brother, and that was
Hmm.
important to me. Like he was my coach, and it was special in that aspect. He did a lot in the state of Missouri and was really good. And for me to, kind of give back all the time he put into me, and that was something special family wise. Um, the NCAA tournament's just a different beast.
Hmm.
Feels like the Super Bowl, it's big. There's a lot of people, and when you win that, like I said, it just kind of goes by so quick. And at the end of it, you're like, I just won that. Wow. All right. So, and it's kind of one of those like special moments. And then the U.S. Open was kind of good for me because I was a little older. I'm not crazy old, but I was a little older, and I think that one kind of hit home because I knew I was done. I was towards my end. I retired after the World Trials and was done. And I think that one hit me a little more like I kind of finished the way I wanted to. Obviously, making the world team was the goal. That didn't happen, but the U.S. Open was pretty special because my wife got to watch me wrestle, and that was important. And for family wise, and she got to watch me compete, and so that one was pretty special in the aspect that I knew I was done. I was like, I got one tournament left, and then hopefully the World Championships, and bring back a medal, and I can be done. And that was big for me because I'd never won the U.S. Open. I went 3 times and lost, 2 times before, and it's a really tough tournament. You're getting everybody's best, and there's young guys, there's older guys, and that one probably I would say most special to me probably now. Now 10 years from now, I don't know,
Hmm.
but for now that was a pretty big deal for me. Moving forward, like kind of ending my wrestling career, I should say. So
Yeah. Um, Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with spring and summer wrestling, freestyle and Greco this summer, but
mhm.
typically what we're all focused on at this time is getting high school kids ready for all this stuff, junior duels and cadet duels and Fargo and everything. So a lot of people, I guess one of the unspoken things that people who are just kind of like casual wrestling people don't know is that a lot of memories people build come off this spring and summer. So
Mhm.
I was just wondering, do you have any favorite memories from freestyle and Greco season when you were growing up?
Yeah, that was like that was kind of my dad and my brother, and they kind of made that a big deal. And my coach, my club coaches, that you're going to wrestle in the summer. It's all the way. I played football like in the fall when in my kids, and then as I got older, I didn't play football anymore because I'm 5'7" and 140 pounds, so that doesn't really work out. Uh, but yeah, I loved it in the summer because like the big thing for me that I remember probably the most was like the cadet dual trips, like you talked about junior duels. Like I never went to junior duels, but all the guys would tell me. But the cadet dual special, those are special trips. We had, I want to say that 2 years we actually kind of got lucky. They were both in Kansas City.
Hmm.
So for me, it wasn't a big travel, but like the team was still really close, and it was everybody from every part of the state getting together and putting their best to try to win it. We actually had some pretty good teams when I went through. Drake Howdeshut was on my team, and a couple other teams, and then we're wrestling at the same time in college, and it's special. You meet some of your buddies that you never thought, from different teams, and you hopefully keep those, relationships. If I see Drake, now I still talk to him for a while, and we were pretty tight on those teams. And so it's interesting how, those trips can really make a difference on whether you really love it, because in the summer, everybody's, I should say, normal people or other people are out at the pool and doing different things, and you're training freestyle wrestling, to try to either win freestyle, Fargo titles, or you're trying to, get better for the next folk style season as well. So a lot of good memories, but the ones that stand out definitely are cadet duels and the fun that we had, on those trips, because they were pretty fun. So
Yeah. All right. This is kind of just a wrestling nerd question, but you've wrestled tons of people, obviously. Um, who is your least favorite person to wrestle and why? And I don't mean personally you hate them or anything. I just mean maybe they just aren't fun to wrestle. And it could be, a practice partner. It could be anything. I mean, doesn't have to just
Yeah.
be a match. Who are some of your least favorite people to wrestle and why?
Oof. Um. Dang, that's kind of tough. I would say practice-wise, Kendrick Maple was good to wrestle, but also terrible because he would absolutely thump me in practice, and I
Mhm.
did not enjoy that at all. He was really strong, really fast. I spent most of my time probably on the mat, just laying there, just wondering when it was going to end. But he was really difficult. It was good for me, but I hated it because he was really tough to wrestle, really strong, really athletic. I was definitely out of my wheel. When I got a takedown on him that day in practice, I took that for like the week and was like, all right, that might be the only one I get for a while. But he was a tough guy to wrestle. Man, I don't know. It's kind of tough because I didn't think of too many people like I just hated it. I wrestled a lot of guys a lot, I should say. Like the Big 12 was I'd wrestle a lot of guys like 5, 6 times in my career, maybe more if they were the same weight like I was. And
I always
that
felt
just,
like you were like every time I saw you wrestling, it was like Johnny Morrison, like all the time.
yes. And he was a guy that was really difficult to wrestle. I wrestled Earl Hall a lot in college. I was like, because we were in the Big 12, and a couple guys like that were pretty tough. But yeah, there was a couple like Morrison was a tough one. I finally ended up beating him the last time, but he beat me like probably 5 or 6 times before I had actually beat him the once. And it was like,
You beat him in NCAAs, right?
yeah. We wrestled in the NCAA tournament. I got like 3 takedowns in the first period, which had never happened in like any of our matches. They were always like 3-2, 4-2. I mean, he beat me, I think, one time by like 6, and that was like the most ever. And then after that, we wrestled, and I ended up pinning him at the NCAAs. And that was a big win for me because he was a senior and I was just like a sophomore. But yeah, he was a tough guy to wrestle. Like we had this very similar styles, and it was really like we would kind of butt heads on that aspect, and he was really hard to wrestle. Probably say the guy that I don't want to say disliked wrestling the most because it was just probably the only match I've ever gotten like just thoroughly beaten. I wrestled Dan Dennis one time at Midlands when he was out of college and I was a freshman, and I think he tech falled me. I mean, it was like ugly. I felt like I grabbed a hold of him, tried to like move him, and he didn't move. Like I was like, what is happening? I've never had this happen before. And he was one guy that, that I was like, oh my gosh, this is what man strength feels like. Because I remember looking at the bracket and he was on there and it said Dan Dennis, Iowa. And I'm like, surely that's not Dan Dennis from like the NCAA finals a couple years ago. Like that's somebody else. And I hadn't seen him in the tournament, and I was like, whatever. I won like my first 2 matches, and then I had him. And I looked, and I was like, oh my God, there he is. That's him. Yep. I was kind of like, I thought it was not him, and it definitely was him. So I had a little bit of rude awakening as a freshman. But those are probably the only guys that I really probably struggled or didn't like wrestling. For the most part, I liked wrestling just about every, the different styles. Actually, I got interested off that, probably more of how can my style, wrestle into theirs. And I enjoyed that aspect of it a little bit, but
Yeah,
Can you
that was gonna lead me into a question there. You were known for like real high scoring, like super offensive style. So with NCAA wrestling, a lot of times that's really just not a thing. You know what I'm saying? A lot of, like you said, 3. So how did you get in matches and kind of pull guys into the firefight like that?
I think just knowing that if because I gave up, first takedowns or, even 2 or 3 sometimes. And just knowing my mentality was first off, my goal was 10 points or more every match. That was the goal. Whether I didn't care how many he scored, I was going to get 10 or more. And then, just knowing that it's just it's a 7-minute match. It's a long time. People probably think it's maybe short, but I was always a big person on it's a long 7 minutes. He's going to have to stop multiple shots if he's going to be in the match. But I just enjoyed that. The fans loved it. I enjoyed that aspect of. I like seeing points scored. I remember being a young kid, and somebody would score 10 points in a match, and like NCAAs, I was like, that is awesome. The fans loved it, the people enjoy, and wasn't like a people pleaser by any means, but I wanted to put on a show for people that they kind of remembered. They were like, man, that Brewer guy really let it go. And so that was kind of my goal. But yeah, most guys got roped into it at least a little bit, whether they were scoring a lot or I was scoring a lot. It was going to happen. I was going to make sure it happened. So.
Yeah. Jesse, sorry, Jess, I'm going to ask.
We were going on a little bit about styles there. And we've talked to Dom before about it a little bit, but I was just wondering if you would maybe expand a little bit on the differences in styles, maybe even just by like conference. Because Dom always was like, yeah, when you wrestle guys from like Big 12, it's a totally different feel than when you're wrestling people from Big 10 or Pac-12 now and
Right.
or whatever. So I was just wondering if you could maybe get into that a little bit, because sometimes I wonder if people actually think about the fact that there actually is kind of a stylistic difference even by conference.
Oh,
So.
absolutely. Yeah. I would say, probably, and Dom would probably say the same thing. The Big Ten is kind of the brawlers, right? I mean, you got guys that are really good hand fighters, and it kind of, I've noticed it more now, probably from the coaching side, that those coaches, implement their styles, and that's how they wrestled.
Right.
If you look, I was at Northwestern for Andrew Howe, and how he teaches is how he wrestled. I mean, it's I'm going to get you tired. I'm going to wear you down. I'm going to score some points, and I'm going to make you not want to wrestle me anymore. That's kind of that mentality that Ryan Deakins adopted, and then those guys at Northwestern, and the Big Ten style is just, that's how it was, And at Oklahoma, I was lucky to be around, Mike Leitner, and he was a scoring machine, and he was fast, and I fit into his style a lot. We shot a lot of the same, shots, and it was just different. But I think the Big 12 was kind of known for being like the slicker guys, I should say, if any style that they could hit you in some ankle picks, some low singles, and score points, and then it seemed like, and being in the ACC now, that guys are pretty good technically, that they have a very technical style, and the coaching staff, I think, kind of believes in that technique is important, and that's what I've learned a little bit about being in the ACC is we really break down a lot of technique, and guys are just, that's how they wrestle, and like I said, I think coaching styles are different. Everybody, I'm sure Tom Brand's coaches are different from Tom Ryan, and then and Ryan coaches different from Tony Roby, and what I mean. It just, everybody has their own unique way of doing it, and I think the conference, I think more than anything, like the Big Ten's been known for that. They're gonna hand fight, hard, and stay in there, and the Big 12, was kind of known for, we're gonna score some points, and we're gonna shoot a lot, and we're gonna try to slick you every once in a while, and that's just kind of what they were known for. But it's interesting because you see kids go into that style, like high school recruiting wise. Maybe they wrestle different in high school, and then they change,
right.
When they get to college, or it's different. It's interesting to see. It's cool, really cool for our sport that there's not one way, to do it. Obviously, Iowa won 10 titles in a row, or, they were crushing it for so long, and that was like the only way. Right. And then there was more guys that came through. Oklahoma back in the day was, the Schultz brothers had their style, and, and so it's just kind of interesting how it all is evolved to now, I should say.
What do you think, like, whenever you're looking at high school kids trying to recruit them? There's a lot of different things people think that matter, but what do you think most good college coaches are actually looking at about the kid to view him as recruitable from a wrestling technique standpoint, I guess?
Yeah. I think it's big that, for me, that the guys have, good attacks, and could be able to stick in the hand fight. Maybe not, brawlers, but can stick in hand fight, and be able to move. And I think that, one of the biggest things is, how much they can take and get back up, was the biggest thing that I always told people, especially on the Division I level. It's not really how much you can dish out a lot of times. It's how much you can take and kind of keep getting back up. We got a lot of guys, even on our team, that, I look more if they give up a takedown, what happens next? Do they bail? Do they get back up to their feet and try to go again? Or does it, is it crazy scramble? Like, what kind of kid, are you going to be? And I was a big emphasis on, that you got to be able to score points and you got to be able to be, nothing really affects you. You give up a takedown, you're back to your feet, you're right in that guy's face and you're wrestling, or you're getting on top and you're really working to turn, or, you're getting off bottom because it's a thing you need, and I think, high school kids, it's different sometimes because you're having to look at, them wrestling other high school guys, right? They get in a college room, it's different, but, I think for most high school kids, it's just, knowing how much you can take, can you break yourself to the breaking point, and can you get back up and keep going? That's what I really look for in a guy. If he's, it doesn't matter if he's a 4-time state champ or a 1-time state champ. If he can dish it out and be able to take it and keep going, that's a big indicator in our sport that you can usually make it,
Yeah.
So.
Well, we'll let you go after this. I just got one more question. Do you have you've done a lot of different things. You've been wrestling all the time for basically your whole life. This is probably your first period of time for a long time you haven't wrestled, actually.
Yeah.
But does any particular story stand out to you as a weird wrestling story or a surreal wrestling moment, anything like that?
Oh man, so I was at Granite City tournament, which used to be a big tournament we used to go to in Illinois. And I remember it was a weird moment. I still remember it to this day, but I put this kid in a cradle on top, and right before I turned him, he looked right at me, like right into my eyes, and he said, "I love you." And then I put him in his back and pinned him, and it was the weirdest. I felt so awkward after that match that I was like, I went over and told my brother, and I was like, that guy just said he loved me right before I pinned him. I mean, and I not kid you, not a smirk on his face, not weird. I mean, he looked dead into my eyes and was like, "I love you." And then I pinned him, and I was like, that was the weirdest thing I think I've ever been a part. Like, and the college, I couldn't tell you I don't know if I had anything that was crazy weird. And, in the freestyle, there was never anything that was, over the top. But that high school moment, I was like, that kid just told me he loved me right before. And he might have really loved – I don't know. It was the weirdest.
Yeah, you should
didn't
hunt
have
him down. Figure out what –
yeah. Nothing.
All right, man. Thank you. That was awesome.